In today's video, we'll look into a scenario in which the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and North Atlantic Treaty Organization go to war. And the first thing to show is that a few of the closer nations, like Sweden, joins the side of Nato because they would, even though they're not really part of Nato. Bosnia we can add, Kosovo, we can probably add Ukraine and Moldova, Georgia, Azerbaijan at this point. For the other team, and Israel, for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, they would probably get Belarus, Serbia, Armenia, Afghanistan, and Mongolia. Because those nations are close. Since Israel joined, they'd probably get Palestine, Lebanon, some groups in Palestine, Lebanon, and Syria. And as we can see, that's pretty much all that would probably join both sides. Just because people would start joining sides, just because they can, kind of thing. But I would say this is probably the most still evolved. Maybe it would evolve into Morocco, Algeria, or Venezuela, or Cuba. You can see them getting Cuba. But I don't think I'd see them getting Nicaragua, because Nicaragua probably wouldn't join. I don't even know if it's even able to join a war. But Venezuela does Venezuela stuff as they invade Guyana, because they heard of this war, but not yet. That part didn't happen yet. With an advance, and also keep in mind the Ukraine war, let's say it was it'll be more successful with the help of its Asian allies, such as China. It would get India and Iran. Iran would probably start a front against Turkey, and Russia would start a front against Turkey. Turkey would really just show the world that they're a power by invading Syria, with Israel doing Israel things. And quickly I could see Syria falling with armed rebel groups still popping up and fighting, I would say. And Russia struggles to invade Finland, I guess, could be. Belarus starts a front against Ukraine, probably with Russian help into the Baltics. Probably be like that. And as we can see, they'd probably struggle to get into Finland, because as we know, Finland's a very likely to fight country. Along with Turkey, I believe, statistics say. Serbia moves into Kosovo. I could see them gaining a bit of land, but to the amount they could take, probably around there. Now let's see NATO's first counteroffensive. With the fall of Serbia, a pushback in Ukraine, a minor pushback, one up here by Kaliningrad. That's probably all. Maybe the beginning of an offensive in the southern and northern Vojvodina, and probably areas of Serbia, as you can see. And probably one of the first things was the South American nations realized they might have made a big mistake and they invaded. With Venezuela, relations technically not that bad with the U.S. I don't think they would go to war, but maybe they would. With them invading Guyana, because they can. With Suriname deciding to help them invade Guyana. With French Guiana getting militarized by France and brought into the war, despite the fact NATO technically doesn't protect it. And I would say Brazil and Colombia probably join. Venezuela gets resistance, but not yet, because they don't invade yet, because we're in a different front. With China sending its military, I don't think their military is really that strong. I think it's more of a paper tiger, to be honest. Because it's only once invaded a country in the 70s, Vietnam, even though they helped them win the Vietnam War. Yep, China, really. They also technically beat India in a conflict in the 60s, but overall not much. Unlike India, which has lots of military training and lots of testing of its military might. Ukraine is a strong country, but I would say India and Pakistan and China is probably focused on the southern front, while Russia and the northern nations are probably focused over here. North Korea, and let's say the Baltics fall, because they would, because they're weak. probably not that fast, and they'd probably resist harder because I think NATO is probably technically stronger on multiple grounds, including how trained their military is, equipment, technology. What else would I say they're efficient on? I'd say the West is also less efficient on population, but more efficient on its weaponry. They have more training in combat from the Middle East, Afghanistan, although they didn't do good in that, but they did realize they're not good at mountains. So yeah. With Turkey getting invaded towards Ankara, the Turkish president then decides to make a counter-offensive. With basically manpower's the advantage of the red team, with an invasion of southern Guyana, not into Venezuela like that, no. An invasion of southern Guyana. An invasion on two fronts in the Venezuela, including over here where they take the capital in the south. I would say Venezuela probably wouldn't give up, but I would say it could get overthrown, and then that would happen. That's what would probably happen. Suriname would probably fall because I don't think they're a strong country. They might be stronger than I'm acting, and then see, that's what happened in South America. But China sends its troops and attempts a large attack, along with Pakistan and India. As if this alliance stable. I don't even know if this alliance could stay together. Because as we know, Pakistan, Afghanistan, bad relations. Pakistan, India, bad relations. China, India, bad relations. Yeah, so it would probably fall apart. I would say, if they did manage to stay together, which likely they wouldn't, they would have a good chance of winning this. With Ankara being taken, and Israel somehow managing to hold on to Syria for a while. With America deciding to use aerial and naval supplying of the region. With Russia and allies managing to make a breakthrough into the Polish front. Although, keep in mind, the Polish strong military. Poland is stronger than Germany. With German help, Poland and Germany make a huge offensive. Ukraine's the 15th strongest nation, actually. But, that's because they're full of Western equipment at this point, I would say. Because the technology does favor the West. With North Korea and multiple things. With Morocco deciding to support the Western team as they quickly annex and occupy the rest of Western Sahara. This launches a campaign, and this launches the war to establish itself into North Africa as Algeria declares war. And Algeria's attempt is to overthrow the government and put a pro-Algerian government in, I would say. But with all of NATO sending supplies, yeah. With Ukraine at this point in this war being significantly weakened, I could see an invasion starting in the Moldova and Ukraine. Honestly, the invasion of Moldova beginning. And that would be quick. If Ukraine managed to fall, but I don't think it would get this bad. With an expansion into the Asian front by the U.S. after they have sent tons of supplies, tons of troops to Taiwan, Japan, and South Korea, they enter this front. And China and Russia are shocked. But North Korea isn't, and they use this as an excuse to attack. With Japan making an invasion with the help of the U.S. and the Sakhalin. And they mess the front up. But anyways, North Korea's military probably would attempt at this point to take over lands. With Japan moving up and taking the Kuril Islands. North Korea launches an attack, but it fails. Because the South Korean military knows this is going to happen. And an invasion into China begins, but it's a stalemate. With America, Japan, and Canada launching attacks across Western Russia, with Japan landing there. Canada lands here and makes a bit of an offensive, but that's because there's no resistance. And the U.S. gets here, arrives, and yeah. Eventually, they established here because they know there's probably going to be Russian resistance and they don't want to take too much land too fast. But if they took all of Russia over, they would collapse. I don't think they will take over all of Russia. I don't even think that's possible. With Finland launching a successful counterattack. With them even landing in Estonia. No, they didn't, but it looks like they did. Don't know how that happened, but it did. Let's see what was going on the Morocco front. With French, American, and British forces arriving in Italian and Spanish and Portuguese, they all launch a campaign. The goal is to take the coast, literally. And another goal is to take some disputed lands. I believe Morocco and Algeria might have disputed land. With France launching a campaign and quickly taking Algiers. With Algeria quickly collapsing after this point. Because there's nothing left but desert, basically. With America sending more troops to Europe at this point, they managed to make an offensive into Ukraine. And this offensive actually went fully successful as they managed to take some southern Ukraine. They're trying to get offensives, with Ankara being retaken by Turkish forces at this time as they've had time to supply and get forces ready. With, I would say, both teams are fully mobilized. Say China pushes back the Korean front, but I don't think they can take much back. I know they can take quite significant back probably, but I don't think they can take over South Korea because they're focused on a two-front war at this point, and a two-front war is hard. With Finland, Norway, Sweden launching an offensive into Russia, with Finland cutting off the road into up here, and quickly they take over the lands because there's a lot of weapons that are stored here, I believe. Don't know if that's right, but it could be right. I think it's right. But anyways, they move in. Finland quickly takes St. Petersburg, but they didn't have enough forces to do this, and they're quickly knocked out of the city, but they don't get pushed back to the border all the way. So it did have some success. With Turkey sending forces to Israel to try and make it harder for Iran. As now Iran's in a bit of trouble. And a bit of trouble happens again. And some of the nations start turning on each other. With India having another election. Yeah. I guess they probably do. And it's likely India could turn on the team they're on, I would say. As now they're starting to lose, and a lot of the nations are not that good relations with, such as Pakistan and China. With Pakistan starting to accuse China, India, and China's accusing India of causing defeats, India switches sides. Yep, we'll give India the job of switching sides, because in every video somebody needs to switch sides, right? Which, I mean, that's probably a likely thing to kind of happen. A quick capture of Karachi and a movement towards Islamabad with a quick capture of Islamabad because Pakistan forces are out in Europe. And they also take back the dispute they have with China and they start moving into disputed lands with India, with other nations. With Russia being in a lot of trouble at this point as the U.S., along with its allies, move to Finland and start moving south past St. Petersburg, and now they're trying to control these lands, along with they take St. Petersburg. With Russia's people being tired and demotivated by how long the war is taking, a bit more offensive in Ukraine and Poland is made. And it looks like they're not having a good chance. With the U.S. landing in southern Iran and their offensive gains land. But keep in mind, it isn't going to be the most successful campaign either. But quickly they managed to take out Iran. Also, hopefully you realize this took much longer than it looked like in this video, but obviously it did. Well, they're taking probably, I would say this is months or even years into the war. Probably about 4 or 5 years in, I would say. With Iran surrendering or being overthrown, one or the other. Doesn't really matter what happened. Well, then they take this, and then they take Pakistan out. And they decide not to invade Afghanistan besides a tiny amount to secure the zone in Afghanistan. With Central Asian nations seeing this is not probably going to go well for them, a lot of them start leaving the war, including Afghanistan. China, seeing this war is unwinnable, still continues to fight until it becomes that dire in their country. And with the leaving of with Tibet declaring its allegiance to the other side along with Xinjiang, and China is not wanting to surrender, with them moving up towards, and they also take Vladivostok while they're at this, with them moving towards and moving out here. With this being like the combined forces of the US against China. China has, I would say China could get pushed that far. Even at this point of like years of fighting, economic crises. They'll probably try to push back. They might succeed a bit. But eventually they realize how unwinnable this situation is, and they ask for peace. With Russia realizing it's unwinnable at this point, but refusing to give up lands in Ukraine, and the West refusing to give up any lands, they decide to launch an offensive. A counter-offensive, then they start a big offensive into Russia, the biggest offensive ever. With them sending more troops than they probably should, and probably going to collapse their economies. But anyways, it's worth it, I guess. And as we can see, as Russia starts losing huge amounts of land over the course of probably multiple years, I would say. As I don't think Russia would fall fast. Maybe they would after years of fighting, but I'd say it would be at least a year or two before Russia actually falls. With them heading towards Moscow, with Moscow being taken, but Russia still hasn't surrendered. And that front they see as not working in the long run. Then they start their Siberian attack, and they realize, and now they sign peace with Russia, as Russia has nothing they can do at this point, and it probably fell into a full state of anarchy. So they bring the Russian leader to a peace treaty. And I would say after peace, borders would change. Say Afghanistan, all troops will withdraw from Afghanistan. Let's see how the treaty went. Lesser Nam is mostly annexed by Guyana, with some lands going to Brazil and France. And Colombia gains a big chunk out of Venezuela, with the rest being made an American puppet. Because why not? And Morocco gets some land. Russia loses quite a bit of land. You know why? But yeah. Because some was given to Finland, Ukraine, Poland, Belarus was annexed by Russia. India gained Kashmir, as well as part of the lands, and they end up with a border dispute with Tibet, with Pakistan being made an India puppet, and then a puppet of Siberia is made for America. An American puppet is made in Kyrgyzstan. It's made in Iran, Russia and Siberia, Vojvodina, Serbia, and Russia. And then what's left of Russia is basically Putin, Russia. And then that's China, still communist. Didn't lose much land. It wasn't that harsh considering how much land was occupied at the end. They didn't lose all the land that was occupied. And Russia got a bad treaty, but not as bad as Syria's treaty, because they were gave to Iraq. And America, trying to make Iraq their best friend in the Middle East, for some reason decides to give them Kyrgyzstan. Who knows why? the Caucasus unite, the Baltics united, Poland, Lithuania came back, Turkey became Ottoman. It looks like a tiny Ottoman Empire, which is good for them. Italy didn't get anything out of it except money because they were paid, but anyways, to join the war. But as you can see, the world is very different now and probably is more unstable. Maybe, but would India switch sides? Or if India didn't switch sides, it probably would have ended in a stalemate. Why did that make things interesting? You always need to have an Italy in every war. If you got the joke, that's good. If you didn't, well, okay. But we all know Italy wasn't good at World War II. And they got bribed in World War I. That's Italy. And that's all for today's video. Please like, subscribe, and comment. That's all for today's video. I'll map her out, but not really subscribe. Bye, guys!